Cool. Okay, welcome everybody to the meeting of the Finance and Performance Committee on Wednesday, 28th of May. Let's move to our agenda. Item 1, apologies. There are no apologies today, but we do have councillors holding us in hearing joining via Zoom. And I'll move apology on their behalf for lateness. Do I have a seconder? His Worship the Mayor. All those that have been say aye. Contrary no. Carried. Declarations of interest. Do any members wish to declare a conflict of interest with any of the items on the base agenda? No, it's fine. Public forum. We do have a member of the public wishing to speak today. We have Leith-Anne. Did I say that correct, Leith-Anne?
Leith-Anne.
Leith-Anne, sorry. Apologies. You're speaking to item 5, which is the small land transport projects funding. And you have 5 minutes to speak, and at the end I'll try and ask you some questions. Okay. Excellent. So the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. So good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As I said before, my name is Leith-Anne Mangos, and I'm here today on behalf of the Blue Mountains Residents Association and the community that I live in. And we believe that a decision was already made. We were told that funding for a bus stop on the corner of Avro Road was secured or ring-fenced, the funding for this. And as a community, we worked with the council on this and we trusted that process. But now we've just found out that the funding appears to be in question, and yet the groundwork quite literally has already begun. This isn't just about a bus stop for the children. It's about keeping our young people safe, honouring community consultation, and showing that Upper Hutt City Council is committed to infrastructure that protects our next generation as they head off to learn, grow, and become tomorrow's leaders. So let's just kind of recap what's happened. So multiple consultations with council about implementation of a bus stop up on Blue Mountains. The vehicle speed monitoring has occurred. There's a new footpath which has already been laid, a pathway that has no other logistical purpose except to lead to the proposed bus stop. A private property owner has even relocated their driveway in direct consultation with the council, specifically to accommodate this project. These are not maybe actions, these are concrete steps based on clear direction from the council that the bus stop would proceed. So we're in a rural area, there's no other pathways, and yet up to 10 primary school children, sometimes more, gather at this corner in the mornings. A similar number of older students catch the earlier intermediate and college buses, and often parents accompany them standing roadside on private property. Currently, the bus stops on the road itself, and cars continue to drive past, often quickly, and this is while children are stepping on and off the bus. And it's unsafe and frankly not really acceptable in 2025. The infrastructure work has already begun, and the planning has already involved both public and private parties, and it would be inefficient and inconsistent to stop now. So this is not a case of new spend. It's about following through on what was committed to and aligning with the safety priorities that Upper Hutt City Council has consistently said it values. And in fact, not proceeding would actually mean a waste of funds and probably broken trust for a bus stop that's already halfway implemented. So providing a sheltered space and visible place for students to wait is not a luxury, it's an essential infrastructure, especially when we consider that it's children using this bus stop. So these young people are heading to school, and that's a matter of basic safety and a duty of care. So what if we did the right thing now? What if we follow through, install the bus stop, and ensure that these kids and their parents don't have to worry every morning about fast cars or standing on uneven roadsides, private property, knowing that something has been done to look after the safety of their children? What if we show that Upper Hutt City Council prioritises safety and education and meaningful consultation with its residents? A safe school bus stop is in a rural area should not be up for debate. it's just not sensible planning. It's the right thing to do. And so I ask for your consideration to finish what's already been started for the kids, for the families, and for a community that wants to know its voice and its safety matters. Thank you. Would you like to add anything?
Well,
Not anymore? Okay. Speech was rehearsed, not confident now.
Thank you very much, Leith-Anne, for your submission today. Do we have any questions? Councillor Ultra, then Councillor Swales.
What sort of time frame were the community expecting for the works to be done? What have you been told?
So we were told a loose time frame, but basically for the beginning, the works would have begun at the beginning of term 1, which some have, like the footpath on the side of Avro Road has been completed, but that's it. That's all that's happened now.
Thank you.
Councillor Swales.
Thank you for coming and speaking to us this afternoon. It's much appreciated. So I'm very much aware that this conversation started way back in 2023. The original conversation, I believe, that took place was to actually provide a bus stop, not necessarily a bus shelter. And as it morphed, is it important to have the shelter, or is it important to just have the bus stop? Because I think somewhere along the way, what would you like to see? A shelter and a bus stop, or just the bus stop?
Well, we'd love to have whatever you would give us. So
Right.
both would be ideal. However, a starting point would be the actual bus stop, so that the bus has a safe place to pull off the road and actually allow the children to get on and off the bus safely, and allow the parents to wait there as well in a safe environment.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Leith-Anne.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. So we'll move to item number 4, which is first report we have today, which is the proposed regulator levies water services. And now, so this is council being tasked with collecting a levy on behalf of Taumata Arawai, which is our water regulator. And the paper is read. Do you have comments, Sarah?
through YouTube, no, not over.
Yeah, we'll open up for questions. Councillor Ultra?
I just wanted to ask if would this be in addition to Greater Wellington Regional Council's bulk water levy? This is in addition.
Through YouTube, we said this.
Councillor Wheeler, then Councillor Swales.
Thank you, Chair. So all up, I worked it out, it's $8.79 per property. 765 plus GST.
Yeah, so the rates that are given to us have been per person that have been done by a population base. And so we're still working out how we're going to charge that per household.
So the question I have is mandatory, is it? It is mandatory. And you've mentioned implementing process to collect the monies. And you're working through that. You know how you're going to do that?
Through your chair, no. So we are talking to other councils to see how they are doing it, just so that we're not reinventing the wheel. And we've had a mixed results of how each council is tackling it, but we haven't landed yet on how we're thinking. Some councils are just putting it straight in as budget and saying to the Commerce Commission and Te Mata Arawai to just invoice us, and that we'll collect it via our rates. Some are trying to put it as a separate levy. It comes with its own complications. So it's very, very tight for us doing it currently.
The task given to us by Taumata is not really compatible with the way councils to charge for its services. And so that's created the whole problem that we're facing.
Yeah, we
Councillor Swales. Sorry.
So having read this, and it is done on a population base, and we're looking at an entity that is going to be looking at providing services and advocating. The other one is advocating on those delivery of those services, but part of our population is rural, which are not going to have access to any of these services. So is there a plan in place of how we're going to mitigate that?
Through you, Chair, that's something we're thinking about, and how will that work?
Absolutely. And then, of course, we have other people that are within 50 metres or not quite 50 metres of the connection, that they pay 50% of it. So there's a whole lot of different matrix there that I understand. I've read both of the submissions that we put in as a council to Tamata Arawai and the Commerce Commission. And I find that did we get a response of any of the submissions that were made nationwide to any of them?
Through you, Chair, I'm not sure if council got a direct response, but there was an email sent out to, I believe, all councils with the generic, here's how consultation went, and this is how we did it.
Okay, all right, one other question, if it's all right, Chair. So it states in the paper here that we've actually put some or collected some money in our rates. So how much money have we put aside for this, knowing that this was coming up? Will it cover the $261,000 that we are going to be levied in the first year?
Through you, Chair, no. So at the moment, we've only put in a very small amount of around 10K until we can establish how we were going to rate it, or collect it, I should say.
And just another question, sorry. And that 10K was purely looking at knowing that these fees were coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think we found out in January.
Yeah.
Consultation started, so it just hasn't aligned very well with the annual plan, unfortunately.
The purpose of this paper is not to say that we have all the answers yet.
No.
We're going to do it. It's to let the elected members know and the public know that this is happening.
Yeah.
And it's another gift from our friends in the Beehive, but this is what we're going to deal with. So, Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, and following along that, you probably tell me to shut up now. The cost involved in collecting this as a levy or a rate or somehow being borne by us, have you any information or like one way or the other how much it would be?
Yes, we would have to pay the cost of collecting, but no, we don't know what that will look like at this point.
Councillor Carson.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's ridiculous to go out and collect $5.34 or whatever it is, plus GST, I suppose, is it? From individuals in Upper Hutt City or any council, because how do you distinguish how many people are in a household, et cetera, et cetera. So you've only got 4 weeks to come up with a solution for this. So I find that you're in a catch-22 position. So my proposal would be that the council pay it, not recover it from anyone, but just pay it. 261,000, I suppose, is the estimate. 261, okay. Just pay it over and don't collect it from individuals, and somehow sort out how he's going to fund it within the overall budget. But I don't think it's ridiculous trying to establish a system, because this is a one-off levy.
No.
Of 2 years, trying to establish it for people, and the people are going to move around like nobody's business. Like there's a snakes and ladders game.
I don't think there's any intention for us to try and charge individuals at this stage.
Yeah, through you, Chair, we don't actually have the information you need.
Right, so you just pay a lump sum.
But the problem with paying with a lump sum, councillor, as Councillor Swales alluded to earlier, it would have to be absorbed in the general
Yeah.
rates. And that means people who are in rural households who don't have a water connection would be paying for the regulator that we all enjoy, they don't.
Life.
Well, yeah, and also the problem with it being a levy as such, is that it is not charged to the property, it's being charged to the individual. Is that if that property is then sold, it's not the property that's liable, it's the individual. So there's a whole lot of problems with this whole situation. Question. Councillor Griffiths.
Have to move that.
No second.
Can I just have a discussion point?
Absolutely, sorry, and any discussion on that?
I just want to say, as a chair, thank you for bringing this up and giving us the opportunity to actually explain a little bit more to the community that, there's so much misinformation out there that they're going to look at this or may not look at this, but see that it's coming down. Someone's going to grab the headlines and understand, but it's good that we've had the opportunity to discuss it and explain to them that we have no control over this. We just have to try and figure out how it's going to happen. So thank you for allowing that conversation.
No problem. There's no further points. Cool. So we've got a mover in Councillor Griffiths and a seconder in myself. All those that are opinion say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's carried. And so we move to item number 5. That is our small land transport projects funding. And so we have 3 recommendations in section 2. So it's either A or the second A and B. So you first one or the second 2, just to clarify, so we don't have any confusion. Director, did you have any opening comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Look, I guess just acknowledge this is a challenging space for councillors, the community and staff to operate in. I mean, staff go out and assess the risk in these sites, work with communities to prioritise those and bring them together to try and get funding to address the risks. And you know, as we heard, there's lots of passion around that, and that passion exists in our staff as well to get the work done. And if we think about the recent incident in Silver Stream, we're assessing that to put into the low cost, low risk program as well, but in the knowledge that it's unfunded and unlikely to get funding as well. So it is a difficult situation, acknowledge that, and difficult decisions. And we're just as frustrated for in terms of not being able to deliver the work. We continue to put pressure onto NZTA and get them to share in that risk and make sure as they are the majority shareholder of this asset and that they understand and share the risk profile with us. And I guess in terms of, you know, the risk here is that if we're seen to fund the low cost, low risk program, that their attention will go away and leave us to do that as a community moving forward, when indeed we need that funding to be able to be able to work through what we've got in our program to deliver these benefits to the community. In terms of the projects on the list, they've all been in front of council. In terms of the crossing out here, the ones of the assessment we'd like to do around all, they're both high profile sites as well with lots of foot traffic. And we are seeing people using the marked out crossing out here informally coming across to the pool. So that's raising the profile. It's certainly a highly trafficked area, so that's raising the concern there. And we're, as I said, assessing the Silver Stream site. As I say, our recommendation is to continue to put pressure onto the Transport Agency for funding, but not to go down the route of 100% funding of these projects. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Newell?
I don't understand why we call this low risk, when in fact, when we're talking about crossings, we're talking about high risk. We've already had an accident on a crossing. So I don't understand why we call it this. Low cost, low risk.
It's an NZTA terminology, and risk is generally determined around death and serious injury. And a lot of these don't have that, you know, someone has to die for it to raise the risk profile, but it's just the nature and a name that's assigned to it through the agency.
It's ridiculous.
Councillor Ultra, then we'll go to Councillor Holderness, then Wheeler, then Griffiths.
Through you, Chair, I just wanted to ask about the Blue Mountains bus stop. How much has been spent on that project so far? Because I see there's been quite a lot of work done in that area already. So surely there's not much to go to finish the project.
Through Mr. Chair, I have to go and find out how much has exactly been spent, but the estimate for the work is 150,000. There's still a reasonable amount of things to do out there. Just wanted to stand back.
Councillor Wheeler.
Right, just on SITs, just for clarification more than anything. So in the long-term plan, we had money set aside for our local share of the 10.6 million, which would equate to 49%, which is 5.2 million. Is that correct? We had that set aside?
That's correct.
Okay. So we've got that money set aside. Personally, I think having to wait for NZTA to give you the money when we've got a safety issue there, I think we should be looking at those all those priority projects, get them underway, get them done, B, C, and D. If we've got that money set aside, otherwise you're going to be waiting around forever for NZTA to give you 50% money towards. In the meantime, there's possibility, a high risk factor that someone get bowled at a pedestrian crossing. So I'll be voting for 2 AA or AB combination.
Well, we can come back to that in the discussion. Councillor Councillor Holderness first, then Councillor Griffiths, then Carson, then Swales. Councillor Holderness. Oh,
You're on mute.
now we can hear. No, you're not on mute. All right, we'll go to Councillor Griffiths and then Emma, speak up when we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, okay, good.
Councillor Griffiths, you're waiting again. Councillor Holderness, let's go.
With the Blue Mountains bus bay, given what Leith-Anne said around that it could just be at the moment a pull-off as opposed to the shelter area, do we have an understanding about how much that, if we took away the shelter for now and ensured that we had a bus stop, how much that would cost?
Mr. Chair, no, I mean, in terms of if we phased the project or did it in different ways, we haven't got that, or I haven't got that information in front of me. I can, but again, it's about if we're spending money, you get to spend unsubsidised funding.
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
And presumably, if you were to add the shelter later, that's another cost to go back to the site and re-own it out and all that kind of jazz. Okay, Councillor Griffiths.
My question is really around that funding opportunity. So an opportunity will be lost if we spend this money now. So if we go ahead and do the projects, choose option 2, A and B, that you're saying that LTSA, so this hidden funding, will be funding it on our own potentially ongoing.
That's right, Mr. Chair. So low cost, low risk projects are eligible for 51% subsidy. If we choose to fund 100% of the work, NZTA won't, you can't go back and ask for it later. You will not, you lose that opportunity, and also set a precedent potentially in the agency's eyes that we, if they hold out long enough, that council will just fund the work themselves. And I think that is one of the larger risks in this process, as hard as it is in terms of the risks that are there, because we all feel that. I think we've got to be really clear about it. Staff are not sitting there saying and accepting the risk. We're just wanting it to fit and sit with the community and also the majority shareholder of this asset. They've changed their view and put their money in other places.
Thank you for clarifying that. Just wondering on the one outside H2O, the deleted one, was that like a formal deletion? So it's been a pass through council that be deleted, and then so it can't just be reinstated as of right. So it can't just be water blasted, become a crossing again. I know there's no tolls or anything, but
I don't think it has been formally removed. No. So it could be reinstated.
thank you.
Councillor Carson.
Quite a clarification, please. So, the funding from our NZTA is over a 3-year period, 25-27, right?
Yep.
We don't have any funding given from, right? That's correct. Point number 1.
Yeah.
So
So
they haven't given any funding at all.
not for low cost, low risk
Okay.
projects. No.
So the money that Councillor Weddell's talking about, 5 million, all right? Okay. That's over the 3 years, or is it just for 1 year?
That's over the 3-year period.
Okay. What's the total cost of all the projects then of these these other than the A, B, C and D? What's the
10.6
total?
million.
Through was 10.6 million.
10.6, okay, so we can fund half of it ourselves, 5 million. This will gobble up 400,000 of it. So why aren't we doing it?
That's a question for us.
Okay, so it's a no-brainer to me that we spend 1/5,
Okay,
well, 1/5 of the total.
I just want to stick to questions for now, and then we will have a discussion on this.
Yeah, well, I'm amplifying my question.
Okay, yeah.
So am I right in saying that we're only going to be spending 400,000, or does that include the school speed reduction? So what's the total cost of 13 A, B, C, and D?
B, C and D is 400.
400,000. So it is 1/5 of 5 million that we have funding over 3 years.
Let's let them answer the question.
Thank you.
So through Mr. Chair, so yes, the school speed reductions have been funded because that was an instruction from the agency through the central government to do that. The others have not been funded. 400,000 out of the 5.3 that we hold. I guess what we are signalling is the precedent that sets.
Councillor Swales and his worship in there.
I have 3 questions, and when I look at the National Land Transport Plan for 24-27, already the framework from Waka Kotahi or NZTA has already been set. We've submitted all of our projects, and for some of our projects, we've got our 5149. My question is then, am I right in understanding what the group manager is saying is that we've submitted all our low cost, low risk projects, and the only one out of all of them that we've submitted that they've approved is the school speed reduction? Is that correct? That's my first question.
Mr. Chair, so the initial program didn't have the school speed reduction. That was subsequent and earlier this in the process that we're asked to submit on the 25th of February.
Right.
So initially we got 0.
Yeah, so there's the LTP one,
Okay.
and they've come along later and said, we've got some money, put some projects in, and these are the 4 we put in, with the first one being.
So when I go to page 11 and I look at legal and risk, none of the risks that the manager has cited have actually been documented here for us to actually take into account and consider. If we have already submitted all of our low cost, low risk, and we're not going to submit until the next national action plan, which is 2028, is my reading of this paper, we've already rated over the 3 years the $5.2 million. I think it's an injustice to our community that we don't spend that on some of the low cost, low risk, because all of them, as we've said around this table, have a safety issue attached to them. You know, how much do you put on a life that's been taken? I'm sure there's value that NZTA put on that. So I will be supporting that these 3 extra things get funded, and then I would like brought back as another list of projects at low risk, low cost.
So, that's it, okay, Councillor Keary.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Can I just possibly one question and a follow-up? When we refer to low cost, low risk, I understand the cost element, but low risk, is the definition of that low risk in terms of delivery, blowout of the cost for the project and that sort of thing? Because I'm assuming it's not low risk in terms of risk to life or, pedestrians, passenger, drivers, that sort of thing.
The NZTA wording, well.
Yeah, so through Mr. Chair, it is an NZTA wording and framework, and the concept of national land transport, a pedestrian crossing and Ferguson drivers low risk against State Highway 1 in Auckland. It would be the concept of what you're looking at, a low cost, low risk, and then the value under 2 million. So that's the concept. You're looking at a national risk profile.
Right, okay. So the risk to life on a sort of urban street versus the risk to life on a highway, or it's not to do with life at all? What's the...
Through Mr. Chair, be the overall risk to death and serious injuries is the typical risk profile that's used in these sorts of assessments for funding. So how many deaths, how many serious injuries on that particular stretch of road, and if you think about some of those, State Highway 2 by Tauranga, those sorts of roads that get the funding allocated to them.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am still confused about, these are not the only 4 projects that we think we're doing. And so if we make, I'm still just confused about, if we make a decision that we want these ones to be funded, are we missing out on what I think are high risk ones, like pedestrian crossings in other places where accidents or near accidents seem to have occurred?
So just for clarity, these had been assessed by staff as out of the projects of the 10.6 million that we applied for in the long-term plan, we got invited to resubmit for a second pot of money, and these were determined to be the 4 highest out of those whole long-term plan projects, and the first one's been funded. So yeah, there are of course other projects that we're not fully aware of at this stage in this report, but this report is about these 3. But of course, those other ones are a separate matter.
So just clarification then, if we say that we want these to be paid for out of our share.
Yeah.
What risk is there that we won't have any further funding for the other ones?
We'll have less of our share for the other ones.
So through Mr. Chair, it's correct. So item 7 talks about the database and the team are at the moment. So the council has got an extensive database with a range of low cost, low risk projects in it. The database was created by previous team members, and we're in the process of extracting the low cost, low risk projects out of that and creating that prioritised list for clarification in the room for council. If we spend the 400,000, there will still obviously be the 4.9 million still sitting in there that's eligible for that. Things do change, the list does change. When we've completed the assessment on Silverstream, for example, following the death incident that happened there, that is likely to come to the top of the list for prioritisation and funding. So that can change over time, and the list is dynamic as and when things do arise like that. But this was the snapshot at that time, and we tried to consolidate and just be really concise, and because our hope it was going to get funded. We didn't want to go in and say we want 10.6 million, we want 5.3. We just thought if we went in with a short little list, we'd have the best chance of getting accepted, and essentially didn't get anything over and above what they had to fund, and no other local authority did either that we're aware of. So they didn't fund anyone else's program. So we're not special, they're just not funding anything.
Yeah, I got all of that.
Yeah.
The question I'm asking is, if we tonight say yes to this, how are we impacting on the budget for other things?
The other projects at this stage will not go ahead unless we get the further subsidy, is my understanding. But should that subsidy come along and we spend this money tonight, we won't be able to do the rest of the projects at that full allocation. It's
I think so.
It's as a percentage, it's not a huge percentage, but yeah, that's our call to make tonight. I have one question. How often, under paragraph 9, it says the review and reallocation of low cost, low risk funds by NZTA is undertaken periodically across 3 years. How often is periodically, just roughly in practice?
Well, we're hoping there'll be another one next financial year.
Right, okay.
But we haven't had confirmation of that. There was one in February this year, obviously.
Yeah.
And depending on how the roads of national significance are progressing and how their 3-year funding bucket is, typically, and they get towards the end of their 3-year cycle, find that they haven't progressed as far as they can with the other large capital projects, and the funding bucket opens up to get rid of that tranche of funding in the 3 years. So as closer we get to that, the more likelihood we might find of being able to access low cost, low risk, and getting ourselves prepared, getting the program right, getting the things and assessments right, getting the list out, puts us in the best stead to be able to put that information forward. And then if we keep advocating for these projects, raising the risk through our contacts into the agency, lifts the potential for being successful.
So any further questions?
I have, so is it correct that Minister Bishop has actually added more significant roads to his list, that it's actually been extended, that he's gone with the Cross Valley Link, which is just a little bit south of us, and lifted that up on his priority of national roads of significance, which means that whilst he increases and they hope that they get overseas funding, that if they're going to keep growing and they're looking at putting in road tolls, do you really think that they'll have another review quite soon in the next financial year for low risk, low cost projects?
Mr. Chair, I mean, I don't want that, to be honest, councillor. The view is that they need to try and spend a certain amount of money in a certain amount of time, and the likelihood of that occurring.
And that's the dilemma that I suppose we are at around the table as to what's.
I think that draws us to a good close of questions, unless there's any more. Do we have a mover of any of the recommendations? Councillor Suarez?
I would like to move that
We'll call it 2A or B and C, just for clarity, so we're not talking about different A's.
Yeah.
That's
So I would like to recommend that commits to a shortlist of prioritised physical works to be progressed with unsubsidised funding, fully funded by council. I would like to move that, and I'm hoping I have a seconder. Thank you.
Councillor Carey, second. Excellent. Any discussion on the matter? Your worship, man. That's worship.
I think we should be taking every opportunity to be putting pressure on NZTA to fund these. And look, we can, regardless of how many priority the projects there are, they're all important. The reality of it is, we spend the money, then there's going to be less and less if we're not getting any subsidies. So we need to be putting as much pressure as we can on NZTA to get their 51%. Because as I said, simply spending the money will be less. The other list that the staff are looking at prioritising will be much less money to do those jobs.
Councillor Newell. Okay.
I still feel that we don't have all the information here as to what all the projects are. And just by focusing on these particular, 4 items, that we know that there are others there. And I just don't understand why we haven't got a full accounting for all the projects and why we're just focusing on 4.
Because these have been assessed as the highest priority. We could sit and rank all the projects, but that could be quite time consuming.
Just a discussion point is that, we've had a discussion around this table about whether we wait for our partner to front up and put their money. One of the classic examples was the $1 million that we put in the train station, because we knew that if we didn't stump up to do that, we weren't going to get a train station, and we could have lived in hope that they might have come to do that, but they didn't. So we took a gamble, and look what we've ended up. I hear what my colleagues is saying, Councillor Newell, about she wants to see the whole list of low risk, low cost things, but there's no reason why she can't put it as another recommendation to this committee that comes back to us, because we're going to have $4.9 million here. I also take up the point that His Worship is saying about, let's put pressure on these organisations. Well, look at the pressure that these government ministries are putting on us without no give, and yet we have to front up and do it. So I'm sorry, but some of these things have been around for a really long time. And yes, some of the priorities have changed, but we've made commitments to people in our community. We talk about standing up and supporting those commitments, and that's why I will be voting for the recommendation that I've put forward. And I hope I get support.
Just a clarification on shortlist.
Yeah.
That we're voting on. Shortlist, we're talking about getting A's happening anyway, but B, C and D, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm all for that, and I think you've been waiting forever for NZTA to do it, because sitting around, and I say, do you do the prioritised ones, because there's always more on the list later on, which you can apply to NZTA later on, but these ones here, let's tick these ones off.
Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, through you. It's a shame that we're in a position again when central government stops some funding that we, require. And while we all sit here and we all talk and we all understand the safety requirements we have in our city around bus stops and the motive person talking to us earlier on about the need for that bus stop and the consultation and the conversations that we've had. We were probably under the influence of that decision that we thought we were going to get that money. But while I agree with the mayor, we need to put the pressure back onto the central government. I don't know how we do that when they just pull their head in and just say, no, we can't give you that, or we won't give you that. And I hear the directors plea to, try and hold back and put that pressure on by not putting that in. And I do struggle with which way to vote on this because of those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holdens.
Thank you, Chair. I think the fact that there's no indication of if or when we will get funding assistance in the future, I think we should be doing it now. I think there's some definite safety issues and risks. And while just saying that the safety issues and risks are a result of a lack of funding from NZTA rather than a lack of desire to council, I think we have a responsibility to do it. So I'll be voting for it.
Councillor. No, no further comments. Well, I think there's been a good discussion of the risk of potentially jeopardising future funding, but then also potentially jeopardising safety. So I'll put it to a vote, and we're voting on. Yeah, just do we have to vote on 2 by itself to receive the report?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll vote individually. So we'll vote on 2, which is that the council receives and notes the report.
Happy to move.
And it's moved by councillor Swales, seconded by councillor Carson. All those in the opinion say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's carried. And then I'll put recommendation B. That's been moved by councillor Swales and councillor Curry already. So we'll put that to a vote. All those in the opinion say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no.
Division.
Division required. So all those in the opinion say aye. Put your hand up, please. Yep. And against? Councillor Newell? It's a division, so you have to.
You have to vote.
Sorry, what was that, councillor? Or against? Yes, yep, thank you. And we'll put option C as well, which is that the council formally communicates to NZTA regarding its ongoing concern over the non-funding of the 2024-27 low-cost, low-risk works program and the resulting increased risk for local land transport network users. That's been moved by councillor Swales, and it's wished from here. All those of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. That's carried. Okay. And now we move to the non-financial performance report for 2024 to 2025, quarter 3. Any opening comments?
Just through you, Chair, no, nothing particular from me. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank Haley Boyd, who's sitting over my shoulder here. This is the first time she's lead author on a report, so I just wanted to
Good work. Any questions? Councillor Whittle.
Just on page 15.
Yeah.
Economic development. Just with the measures, the ground floor occupancy in the city centre. You just have a clarity on, is that the main street or the CBD area? What are the metrics on how do you quantify each?
Through each year, that's the CBD is defined in the district plan.
So that's
The
That's
whole
Main
CBD from if you think of the boundary from the health clinics and things on Savage Creek, not Savage Creek, Sinclair Street, down King Street, all the way back to Blenheim Street, Brown Street, including us here, railway line, and then back across Ferguson Drive and Gibbons Street, and back across the west down to Savage Creek, down to the Savage Creek turn off.
Seems our whole policy when it comes. Thank you.
Councillor Swales.
I just want to make a comment on page 17, and it talks about the rationale for not achieving aim. But
Which one, sorry, for the
sorry,
Q3?
page 17.
Yeah, for Q3.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just, there needs to be an acknowledgement that when you read that the water demand continues to increase is quite good because of the investment that we've put in there. And I think that needs to be acknowledged that the money that we're putting in there is starting to see a decline in our water usage. So I just wanted to acknowledge that in both those paragraphs here, the demand for drinking water has reduced significantly as well. But in a later paper, it's going to be a contradiction to that. So I am going to refer back to that, but I just wanted to allude to that there in this report.
I will also allude to page 16 with the water supply metrics for the attendants to call out. And credit where credit is due to Wellington Water for their faults. One of the better reports I've seen over my 6 years here.
Yeah.
With the only one being the attendance for non-urgents, and that's not too far away. So we're getting there.
Yeah.
Better late than never.
Can we believe you?
Oh,
Yeah, it's not a question. Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, we gave Wellington Water some extra money. How much was that? And that would have been, I think, part of this, wouldn't it?
It's through, yeah, we gave them, I can't remember the exact number, sorry, but chatting to them this afternoon, Lake said down to 17. We've got 17 open lakes on the books. So, the typical for this time of year, it does drop down obviously and pop back up, but that's the idea, is to get it as low as possible. So again, good credit there for that and the use, and we're coming in on budget for our reactive drinking water, which is another bit of good working hard. But in saying that, the team here is pushing hard.
Further comments? Councillor Griffiths. Yep. Councillor
On page 23.
Oh, sorry.
Planning, it's around the questions around the difference. There's a difference quite. There's quite a difference in the measurements over the last few years, and it's great to see that those targets have come way up. Now, I assume there's a double-pronged approach, which is we've got our staff numbers up to full complement, and also the applications are a bit lighter. Is that correct? Sorry, which are the was around planning and
consenting.
Yep.
A few years ago, we had quite an issue with it.
Through the chair, I think those exact reasons, the team is getting hitting their straps, doing well, but getting through the processes, getting things organised. It's been good progress in that space.
Councillor Swales.
Just one other question, and it's on page 23, and it's when I get told that there is an awful lot of reported dog attacks in our community and that we appear not to be responding, it's really good to see actually we're meeting our mark of 100%. So, obviously the ones that council officers are hearing about, the dog attacks, at least we're responding and getting it out there. Whereas sometimes, the story out there is not that that.
Councillor Ultra.
Through you, Chair, on page 14, the council emergency preparedness, the bottom line, where it says workshops delivered to the local community. I'm just wondering if we have numbers of the community who turned out. There was one workshop that I attended and there was only 6 members of the community there. And I just wondered if we can have a look at how the community are engaging with those workshops and whether we need to do anything differently to improve the turnout.
Through Mr. Chair, I don't know the numbers, but I can go back and we can pose that as a question.
Thank you.
Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you. This is the private interest. H2O extreme annual attendance, while we haven't got a matrix to report on that because it wasn't open the whole time, could we just get an update from the Director of Economic Information on current? How well you're doing?
I see he's thinking.
Through you, Chair, April 32,264, I think. Just in
Oh, get out.
Roughly. Look at that, just before the tax.
Just roughly, yeah, just roughly.
A good result.
Good. Any further questions? No? Well, then I'll move the recommendation that we receive the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's carried. Just like to acknowledge that our Director of Corporate Services, Kate Thompson's joined us on Zoom as well. So we move to item number 7, the financial management report. That is at 31 March 2025. Do we have any opening comments?
Through you, Chair.
No. And open up our questions. Any questions? No? Well written paper then. Speaks for itself. Councillor Smith.
So, page 26, para 12. So grants and subsidies, just for a bit of clarification. So the subsidies are the 5149. What are the grants that we get and who do we get them from?
Through you, Chair. You give me a second. I think
Absolutely.
Probably just the name of the code.
No,
I think
a good chunk of it is NZTA, subsidies and grants. There might be another what's all ones off the top of my head, so I can come back with further detail.
Yeah, no, and I'm really, really happy for that. Absolutely. Yeah. So I wanted, sorry, Chair. So I wanted to go to para 15, and I did allude in the previous paper that we're not using as much water, drinking water, right? And the bulk water levy is currently under budget by 73k. Do you think that we will still maintain under budget, or do you think that we've still got a further quarter that we will use what we've budgeted for in our projections of our bulk water?
Through you, Chair, based on the weekly reporting that we get from Greater Wellington, it is showing that we're going to go over budget.
Wow.
At the moment, how they do it is they allocate out a yearly budget for the region and we get percentages based on what they think we will use at the moment. Because other councils have used significantly less water than what the assumption was based on, it means our share goes up slightly as a result. So based on reporting we received, I think last week, they are forecasting will be about 350k over budget.
So I'm inclined then to believe what Councillor Carson and his worship and the said about making it Wellington water is not quite accurate.
That's not necessarily saying that we've used more water, it's saying that we're paying more for the water we have used because of the cost.
But that does relate to usage, so I'm sorry.
Chair, the bulk water, there is an amount of money
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how much you consume, there is a total amount of money required to produce the water.
Right.
And the proportion of that cost that you pay is based on your share of the consumption. Because the other councils, and in particular Wellington City's share has dropped so much, it has bumped up all the other council shares proportionally. And we're one of those who's come up. It doesn't, we're actually using around about the same or even less water, and certainly on a per capita basis, less water, because our community, our population has continued to grow. But the amount we're paying is going up because the amount that others have to pay based on their per litre consumption is dropped.
Perverse.
Well, it's the way it's functioning.
Yeah.
It's not perverse, it's just the way it's done. Any other questions? Councillor Griffiths?
Page 6. Page 58. And dividends. OCR is changing in tomorrow. Another good news story.
Through you, Chair, that's the interest we're receiving on our monies held in term deposits.
So probably half of
that.
Yeah, bad story.
Not great for us.
Any other questions? Councillor Soils?
Chair, just one more for you, and it's on page 33. So, sorry, it's on the A3, the next one.
Yep.
Yep. So when I look at support services and I look at, you know, the budget and what we've got there, just a question. We put solar panels on H2O Extreme and the cost for that was 200K, and that's been funded through the sustainability budget. Did we ever consider, with the work that we're doing on the Half High Club, to do the same there with their roof?
Through you, Chair, no. There's the half high roof is just a replacement of the roof. There was no consideration to reinstall the money in barrels.
Councillor Soils?
If I look at this, and if there is money available because it's a smaller roof, would it be something that we would look at?
Through you, Chair, we can certainly look at that, and it could certainly put on the hub or the library or potentially other buildings. And I guess that's another discussion.
Well, only knowing the funding that is in there, that might be available. Just want to put it out there. Thank you.
Question I had on water supply on that same page on 33 of the group manager of operations about Toach Park Bridge. It said council had engaged Wellington Water, and Wellington Water came back with some high prices, so we were going out to market ourselves. Have we got anywhere with that?
So we're still going out to market through Wellington Water. So they're just getting the tender documents ready to go out like early in the new financial year under their new procurement methodology.
Okay. It's so just to humour, what's that change in methodology actually mean in terms of like why would that likely get the cost down on a project like this?
The open market, so going out to the entire market rather than selecting one of their pre-approved contractors and assigning it to them, going to a smaller open tender, and the current market is good for lower prices.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you. Any further questions? All right, I'll move the report. May I have a seconder, please? Seconded by His Worship the Mayor. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Carried. So move now to the debtors report. And you'll see we have an addendum on the table there. That's just at my request, just for the table on page 39, just to provide us the context around the suburbs of, it shows numbers of units there, but just so we know the of what's total. This Trentham looks like it's very high, but then it's actually shows that it's in line with kind of the other areas. And I'll open it up for questions. Councillor Wheeler.
Just on 5, general debt management, could you explain what debt management is, what the debt is, and 15,000 belong to one debt, what's being debt?
So through you, Chair, in the general debtors, we have things like sanitary invoicing, health licenses, swimming pool inspections, building consents, resource management. So it does cover quite a large chunk of council, sits in that general debt management. And so it involves the debt management over all those areas, other than so for our building consents and our resource management, that is debtors, but they're not a debt as such. The consents aren't granted until the invoice is paid, so it just sits there as a bad an age debt, unfortunately, until it's such time it's paid.
So that 15,000 is a building?
No, that building consent. That 15,000 relates to a general debt that we will bring back to council for a debt write-off.
Any further questions? Councillor Hammond?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The general debtors, do we know how many people or properties? Or?
Through you, Chair, no, not off the top of my head. I couldn't tell you how much is sitting in there for that amount. But of that 785k that we have sitting in general debtors, 671k relates to building consents and resource consents. So there is a lot of money sitting there that's not true debt as such. For further clarification, just for the next debt report, we might add a line to show that that is separate. It's not true debt as such.
It's just all money, so we.
Yes, yeah, it's just invoices that are sitting there that will either get paid because they want consent or the invoice will be
Questions? No? All right, I'll move the report. I have a seconder, please. Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Probably no. Carried. We move to the item 9, which is the sensitive expenditure policy. Do you have any opening comments?
Through you, Chair, no further comments.
Kate, do you have anything you want to say? All right.
Sorry, no, I mean, the paper should speak for itself. It was discussed at the Risk and Assurance earlier this month, and this is an update from there. And as attached to the paper, Audit New Zealand have made requests of us to update it, and we've updated in line with those requests.
Thank you. And just as a note for the committee, a copy was provided to the independent member of Risk and Assurance as well, so she's aware. Councillor Newell.
I've got a question about the second paragraph on 43.
On the policy itself, yeah?
Yeah. The purpose of this policy is to provide staff with guidance, blah, blah. And the sentence ends at appropriate. And then all of the next sentence is deleted except for the word council.
Council is, yeah.
And
That's
nothing
probably
else.
just a typo.
Yeah, through you.
That should be sorted out.
Yeah.
It's all been dragged up to here.
But yeah, that council.
Through you, Chair, it was lifted to the front.
But that, yeah, the council is, it's still in black as an error, right?
Yes, it's hanging. It should be deleted.
Cool. Good. Councillor Wheeler.
2 things. Policy, is that renewed on what basis? 2 years, 3 years? Is that a
Through you, Chair, we tend to update it where there's updated advice from the Auditor General. For us, this is what our policy is based on the guidance.
the reason why I'm saying on page 47, like got a fixed cost on breakfast, lunch and dinner, $25. And I'm thinking, it's not renewed if it's renewed every 3-4 years, that $25 will be worth $10, you know.
Yeah, to you, Chair. We will look to put in a procedure of how often we are updating it.
Councillor Swales.
I have a question. I look around the room and I see group managers and I'm a little bit confused and I'm happy to admit that. So have we dropped ELT to group managers or group managers and ELT? I just want to know, do we use both terminologies or have we dropped the ELT for group managers? I just for a bit of clarity for me.
Hand it on to the CEO.
Through you, Chair.
Sorry, Chief.
The group managers are members of the executive leadership team.
Okay, and the only reason why I did that is that you've only used the group manager once, but ELT. So in the sale and surplus, you've got the chief financial officer as a group manager, corporate services. I would have thought that to be then consistent, you might have put ELT, but it's okay. It was just a question. So that was all.
Hey, did you have any comment on that?
Through you, Chair, there's a specific task that is delegated to the role. That's why it's stated like that.
Yeah, I did reference it to the manual of delegation, so I did do that. Thank you, Kate.
Any further questions? No, cool. So we had 3 recommendations there, and I'll move them all together. Do I have a second?
I just ask a question before you do that.
Yep.
On 3.2, supporting record, page 45, second bullet point, detailed GST invoices receipts for all expenditure. What if the person is not registered for GST?
The slash.
Can I suggest you change the wording? And take out the word GST?
It says detailed GST invoice / receipts.
I don't think the word GST should be there. It should just be detailed invoice receipts for all expenditure. Because in some cases, the person may not be registered for GST. And also there's complications about GST that now under the new rules, the GST registered person doesn't need to provide all the details in a GST receipt invoice.
Yes, noted. We will.
Okay. And then it's covered under item C as a consequential amendment. Yep, thank you. That's funny. Councillor Griffiths. Yep, I move. Do you want to second it? Yep, seconded by Councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, no. Carried. So that brings us into the end of our public portion of the meeting, and I'll move that the public be excluded from the following parts of settings in accordance with the reasons noted in the agenda. Seconded, Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. That's carried. Thank you, everyone, and I close the public meeting at 5:39.